Hey, welcome back, my friend. Before we jump into today's lesson, let's have a quick fun challenge. Don't worry about getting every answer right. Just answer loudly with yes or no. Even if you make a mistake, that's perfectly okay. Learning is all about making mistakes and improving. Ready? Let's play. Is SQL Server a hardware device? No. SQL Server is software, not hardware. Is SQL Server a relational database management system, also known as an RDBMS? Yes. Excellent, that's absolutely correct. Can SQL Server store and manage data? Yes. That's exactly what SQL Server is designed to do. Can we create databases using SQL Server? Yes. Very good. Can we create tables inside a database? Yes. Awesome. Does SQL Server automatically become easy without practice? No. Practice is the secret to success. Did we successfully install SQL Server? Yes. Great memory. Did we also install SQL Server Management Studio, also known as SSMS? Yes. Fantastic. Is SSMS a free tool provided by Microsoft? Yes. Perfect. Can SSMS connect to SQL Server? Yes. Excellent. Can we write SQL queries using SSMS? Yes. Exactly right. Is SQL Server used only in banks? No. Hospitals, schools, shopping websites, airlines, and many other industries use SQL Server. Can SQL Server store millions of records? Yes. Absolutely. Should we always download SSMS from Microsoft's official website? Yes. Safety comes first. Should we download SSMS from random websites? No. Always download it from the official Microsoft website. Can we create a table without creating a database first? No. A table must belong to a database. Is SSMS itself a database? No. SSMS is a management tool. SQL Server is the database system. Can SQL Server run without a computer? No. It needs a computer and an operating system to run. Does daily practice make SQL Server easier? Yes. Practice builds confidence. Can mistakes help us become better developers? Yes. Every mistake is a learning opportunity. Are you becoming more confident after each lesson? Wonderful. I hope your answer is yes. Are you enjoying learning SQL Server? Fantastic. Keep that enthusiasm going. Will you practice today's lesson after watching this video? Excellent. That's how professionals are made. Are you ready to connect SSMS to SQL Server in today's lesson? Awesome. Let's do it together. One final question. Are you ready to become a SQL Server master? I knew your answer would be yes. Let's continue this amazing journey together. Welcome back. Before we move forward, I want you to remember one powerful truth. Consistency beats talent. You don't have to study SQL Server for 10 hours in a single day. But if you can spend just 30 minutes every day, your knowledge will grow faster than you can imagine. Learning is not a race. It's a journey. Some days you'll learn quickly. Some days you may struggle with a concept. And that's completely normal. Don't let one difficult topic make you think you're not capable. Every SQL Server expert has faced confusion, made mistakes, and solved problems one step at a time. The only difference is, they never stopped learning. Imagine where you'll be if you continue learning every day for the next 6 months. You'll understand databases with confidence. You'll write SQL queries with ease. You'll build real-world projects. And you'll be proud of how far you've come. So don't focus on being perfect. Focus on being consistent. One lesson, one concept, one practice session, every single day. Keep learning. Keep practicing. Keep improving. And remember, small progress every day leads to big success tomorrow. Now, with that positive mindset, let's continue today's lesson. Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to make our very first connection to SQL Server using SQL Server Management Studio, also known as SSMS. Before we create databases or write SQL queries, we must first establish a connection with the SQL Server instance. So, what is a connection? A connection is simply a communication link between SSMS and SQL Server. Think of it like making a phone call. Before two people can talk, the call must be connected. In the same way, before SSMS can communicate with SQL Server, we need to connect to the correct SQL Server instance. When you open SSMS for the first time, you'll see the Connect to Server window. This window asks for a few important details. The first option is server type. In most cases, we'll leave it as Database Engine, because we're connecting to the SQL Server database engine. Next is the server name. This tells SSMS exactly which SQL Server instance you want to connect to. Don't worry if you don't know your server name yet. In the next slide, I'll show you how to identify the correct server name on your computer. The third option is authentication. For now, we'll use Windows Authentication, which allows SQL Server to use your Windows login credentials. This is the easiest and most common option for beginners. Once these details are entered correctly, all we need to do is click the Connect button. If everything is configured properly, SSMS will establish a connection with SQL Server, and you'll be ready to start creating databases and writing SQL queries. So in the next slide, let's find the correct server name and connect to SQL Server for the very first time. Let's continue. Welcome back. In the previous slide, we learned about the Connect to Server window and the information required to establish a connection. Now let's identify the server name, which is one of the most important details when connecting to SQL Server. You might be wondering, what exactly is a server name? A server name is simply the name or address of the SQL Server instance that SSMS needs to connect to. Think of it like a house address. If you want to visit someone's home, you need the correct address. Similarly, SSMS needs the correct server name to find and communicate with your SQL Server instance. When you installed SQL Server, an instance name was created automatically. For many beginners, the server name might look something like this: localhost, or computer name /SQL Express. The exact server name depends on how SQL Server was installed on your computer. Don't worry if these names look unfamiliar. I'll show you exactly how to find the correct server name. Open SQL Server Management Studio. When the Connect to Server window appears, click the drop-down arrow next to the server name box. In many cases, SSMS automatically detects the available SQL Server instance. If your server name appears in the list, simply select it. If it doesn't appear, don't panic. There are other easy ways to find it, and we'll cover those in the next slides. The important thing to remember is this: without the correct server name, SSMS cannot connect to SQL Server. So always verify that you're using the correct server name before clicking the Connect button. In the next slide, we'll explore different methods to find your SQL Server instance if it doesn't appear automatically. Let's continue our SQL Server journey. Welcome back. In the previous slide, we learned what a server name is and why it is important. Now let's learn what to do if your SQL Server instance does not appear automatically in SQL Server Management Studio. Don't worry. This is a common situation, especially for beginners, and it's very easy to solve. The first method is to use the Browse for More option. In the Connect to Server window, click the drop-down arrow next to the server name box. If your SQL Server instance is listed, simply select it. If you don't see it, click Browse for More. A new window will open, displaying all the SQL Server instances detected on your computer or network. Take a moment to look through the list carefully. Most beginners will usually find an instance named SQL or MS SQL depending on the installation type. If you find your SQL Server instance, select it and click OK. The selected server name will automatically appear in the server name box. Now verify that. Server type is set to Database Engine. Authentication is set to Windows Authentication. Everything looks good. Great. Now click the Connect button. If the connection is successful, SQL Server Management Studio will open the Object Explorer window. Congratulations! You have successfully connected to SQL Server. If the connection doesn't work, don't worry. There are a few more ways to find the correct server name, and we'll explore them in the next slide. Let's continue. Welcome back. In the previous slide, we learned how to use the browse for more option to locate our SQL Server instance. But what if your SQL Server instance still doesn't appear? Don't worry. There are a few more simple methods we can use to find it. The first method is SQL Server Configuration Manager. This tool shows all the SQL Server services installed on your computer. Open the Start menu and search for SQL Server Configuration Manager. Open the application. On the left side, click SQL Server Services. Now look at the list on the right. You'll see services such as SQL Server SQL or SQL Server MS SQL. The name inside the brackets is your SQL Server instance name. If you see SQL your server name will usually be computer name /SQL Express. If you see MS SQL you can usually connect using your computer name or simply localhost. Another important thing to check is the status column. If the SQL Server service is running, everything is ready. If it is stopped, right-click the service and choose Start. Wait a few moments until the service starts successfully. Now go back to SQL Server Management Studio and try connecting again using the correct server name. In most cases, this solves the connection problem immediately. In the next slide, we'll learn another quick method to identify your SQL Server instance using Windows tools. Let's continue. Welcome back. In the previous slide, we learned how to identify our SQL Server instance using SQL Server Configuration Manager. Now, let's explore another simple and useful method to verify whether the SQL Server service is running. We'll use the Windows Services application. This tool is available in every Windows operating system and allows us to view and manage all Windows services. Let's begin. Press Windows +R on your keyboard. The Run dialog box will appear. Type Services, MSC, and press Enter. The Services window will now open. Scroll down through the list until you find a service named SQL Server. Depending on your installation, it may appear as SQL Server SQL or SQL Server MS SQL. Now look at the status column. If the status shows running, that's great. It means your SQL Server service is active and ready to accept connections. If the status is blank or says stopped, don't worry. Simply click the SQL Server service and select Start. Windows will take a few seconds to start the service. Once the status changes to running, your SQL Server is ready to use. Now return to SQL Server Management Studio and try connecting again using the correct server name. In most cases, this will resolve the connection problem. Remember, SQL Server Management Studio cannot connect if the SQL Server service itself is not running. Always check the service status before troubleshooting anything else. In the next slide, we'll make our first successful connection to SQL Server and verify that everything is working correctly. Let's continue. Welcome back. So far, we've learned how to find the correct server name and how to make sure the SQL Server service is running. Now comes the exciting part. Let's connect to SQL Server for the very first time. Open SQL Server Management Studio, SSMS. The Connect to Server window will appear automatically. Now let's verify each field one by one. First, make sure the server type is set to Database Engine. Next, in the server name box, enter or select the SQL Server instance that we identified in the previous slides. Now check the Authentication option. For this lesson, select Windows Authentication. This option uses your Windows login credentials, so you don't need to enter a username or password. Everything is ready. Take a deep breath. Now click the Connect button. If everything is configured correctly, SQL Server Management Studio will connect to your SQL Server instance within a few seconds. Congratulations! You have successfully established your first connection to SQL Server. On the left side of the screen, you'll notice a panel called Object Explorer. This is where you'll manage databases, tables, views, stored procedures, security settings, and many other SQL Server objects. Think of Object Explorer as the control center of SQL Server Management Studio. You'll be using it throughout this course. If you don't see any error messages and the Object Explorer appears successfully, your SQL Server installation and connection are working perfectly. Take a moment to appreciate this milestone. This is your first successful connection to SQL Server, and it's the beginning of your hands-on SQL Server journey. In the next slide, we'll quickly summarize what we've learned in this lesson before moving on to the next chapter. Let's continue. Welcome back. Congratulations. You have successfully completed one of the most important milestones in your SQL Server journey. Let's take a moment to review everything we've learned in this lesson. First, we understood the purpose of the Connect to Server window in SQL Server Management Studio. Next, we learned what a server name is and why it is required to establish a connection. After that, we explored different ways to identify the correct SQL Server instance. We learned how to use the server name drop-down list. We also used the browse for more option to search for available SQL Server instances. Then we discovered how SQL Server Configuration Manager helps us identify the installed SQL Server services and instance names. We also learned how to use Windows Services, MSC, to verify whether the SQL Server service is running. Finally, we successfully connected SQL Server Management Studio to our SQL Server instance. You also saw the Object Explorer, which will become your primary workspace throughout this course. This lesson has prepared you for the exciting hands-on activities coming next. From the next lesson onward, we'll begin working directly with SQL Server. We'll explore the SSMS interface, create our first database, create tables, insert data, and start writing SQL queries. Before moving on, I encourage you to open SSMS once again and practice connecting to SQL Server a few times. The more you practice now, the more confident you'll become in the upcoming lessons. Congratulations once again. You're making excellent progress. Let's continue this exciting SQL Server journey together. Welcome back. Before we end today's lesson, let's spend a few minutes practicing what we've learned. Learning SQL Server is not just about watching videos. The real learning happens when you practice. So I have a simple assignment for you. First, open SQL Server Management Studio, SSMS. When the Connect to Server window appears, verify the following settings. Is the server type set to Database Engine? Is the correct server name selected? Is Windows Authentication selected? If all the settings are correct, click the Connect button. Did SQL Server connect successfully? If yes, congratulations. You've completed today's practical exercise. If not, don't worry. Go back and check these three things. First, verify that your SQL Server service is running. Second, make sure you're using the correct server name. Third, confirm that you're using Windows Authentication. Most connection problems are solved by checking these three settings carefully. I also encourage you to disconnect and reconnect to SQL Server at least 3 times. This simple practice will help you remember the connection process without referring to notes. Remember, the more you practice today, the easier the upcoming lessons will become. In our next lesson, we'll explore the SQL Server Management Studio interface in detail. You'll learn about Object Explorer, toolbars, menus, the query editor, and many other important features that you'll use every day as a SQL Server developer. Until then, keep learning, keep practicing, and keep building your SQL Server skills. I'll see you in the next lesson. Congratulations! You've reached the end of Lesson 5. Today, you've learned one of the most important skills every SQL Server professional must know: how to connect to SQL Server successfully using SQL Server Management Studio, SSMS. Let's quickly remember what we've accomplished today. We learned what the Connect to Server window is and why it's important. We understood the purpose of the server name and how to identify the correct SQL Server instance. We explored multiple ways to find the server name, including the server name list, browse for more SQL Server Configuration Manager and Windows services. We also learned how to verify that the SQL Server service is running before attempting to connect. Finally, we successfully connected to SQL Server and explored the Object Explorer, which will be our primary workspace throughout the rest of this course. Take a moment to appreciate your progress. Every lesson you complete is another step toward becoming a confident SQL Server developer. Before you move to the next lesson, I have one small challenge for you. Open SQL Server Management Studio and connect to SQL Server at least 3 times without looking at your notes. If you can do that successfully, you've truly understood today's lesson. In our next lesson, we'll explore the SQL Server Management Studio interface. You'll learn about the menu bar, toolbars, Object Explorer, query editor, properties window, status bar, and many other important components that you'll use every day. I'm excited to continue this journey with you. Keep learning, keep practicing, keep improving, and I'll see you in Lesson 6. Congratulations! You've successfully completed Lesson 5 of the JeyB SQL 100 SQL Server Mastery course. Today was an important milestone in your SQL Server journey. You learned how to connect SQL Server Management Studio, or SSMS, to your SQL Server instance. You discovered how to identify the correct server name. You explored different ways to troubleshoot connection problems. You learned how to verify that the SQL Server service is running. And finally, you established your very first successful connection to SQL Server. That's a fantastic achievement. Remember, every SQL Server expert started exactly where you are today. One lesson, one concept, one practice session at a time. So don't rush. Practice today's lesson a few more times until connecting to SQL Server becomes second nature. In our next lesson, we'll take an exciting step forward. We'll explore the SQL Server Management Studio interface in detail. You'll understand every important section of SSMS, including the Object Explorer, menu bar, toolbars, query editor, properties window, status bar, and many other tools that you'll use throughout your SQL Server career. Before you leave, I have a small request. If this lesson helped you understand SQL Server a little better, please support JeyB Tech Academy. Like this video, Speech Balloon share your questions or feedback in the comments. Outbox Tray share this lesson with your friends and colleagues. Bell subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the upcoming lessons. Your support motivates me to create more high-quality SQL Server tutorials for you. Thank you very much for spending your valuable time learning with me. Until we meet again, keep learning, keep practicing, keep building, and remember, every expert was once a beginner. See you in Lesson 6. Have a wonderful day and happy learning.